Hey, so good morning and welcome back. So today, as I promised, I'm going to discuss a very important topic that is ChatGPT or GPT 3.5, about which the entire world is discussing, and the way it is envisioned to change the society, the way AI product will work, and the way um, the programmer's life will change. So all these things which we are going to discuss, we'll touch upon. But I can not guarantee you that whatever we are discussing today, the way the dynamics with which the technology is changing, especially in this particular area, artificial intelligence. So I cannot guarantee that whatever we'll talk today will be 100% true, but at the same time, since our discussion will be based on logic and intuitive ideas, so most of the things are expected to be correct. So stay tuned and let us now discuss about um, how GPT learns a language. Okay, but before that, let us try to understand how human brain can learn a language. Many animals, those who have less computation power, can can communicate among themselves with some basic primitives which they are hardwired, and with their birth they inherit those kind of primitives, and using them they can communicate. However, human having so much of computation power takes several months to learn a language. And language learning is not easy. It shows, right? And rightly so, our one of the great philosopher and monk, Swami Vivekananda, told that if a child can learn a language, her mother tongue, then she is equally talented with others. It is so complicated, and it's kind of benchmark. If you learn that within certain years, you are talented. Anyway, even study shows that a newborn mm, actually is quite tuned to the sound and that make up during some of the sounds that make up during um, mm, uh, what becomes a mother tongue. And those sounds started paying attention around the sounds even when the child is in the mother's womb. And in this context, of course, I will tell you a story, 2 minute story, but it's very interesting. As you know, the great epic Mahabharata, um, it talks about a great warrior called Arjuna, and the anecdote goes like this. Um, Arjuna was discussing um, about different techniques of strategic war uh, when to his wife Subhadra, who was carrying Arjuna's child Abhimanyu. And because the war is going to start, and everybody was discussing about this, and Arjuna started even discussing with his wife about a strategic war architecture known as Chakrabuha. So he was discussing how to penetrate such a Chakrabuha and the techniques of penetrating it. And while discussing this thing, then Subhadra was listening them carefully. But afterwards, when he was discussing how to come out after the war, after the fight, how to come out of the Chakrabuha, she felt asleep. And with that, Abhimanyu also felt asleep. So when the child was born, and eventually he, at the age of 16 or like that, he was in a very critical situation. He was sent to the battlefield because his father was not there around, and then others encourage him, okay, we are with you, let us save us from this devastation. So he could penetrate the Chakrabuha, but could not come out because others were not able to penetrate that strategic war architecture. And then, of course, what happened was tragic. He was killed by several people because he did not know how to come out from the Chakrubha. Anyway, that's the story goes. It's a little bit attraction of the story towards this discussion. But it shows that even in those days, it may be exaggerated, but in those days, people knew that when the child is in mother's womb, he could he could learn learn language. And you see, in our brain, there's a massive infrastructure, computation and infrastructure. What we have, uh, it was actually discovered that this is a Wernicke area, and there is a Broca's area. These are the two areas which are responsible after communicating within themselves, they are responsible for learning a language and thereafter speaking the language in the form of speech. So basically, primarily, that Wernicke area is actually responsible for learning the language. And then afterwards, and the Broca's area, the language is synthesis in the form of speech. And that's why it's amazing. And I, from my experience in my adulthood, I learned another language, foreign language, which was completely unknown to me. And it turns out that before I spoke the language, I started getting understanding the language. That means this is fast developed. And then there was a communication between these two, so that handshaking is there with from this learning center, it could synthesis speech. Well, these are the things, and of course, it is not well understood exact mechanism how we actually learn a language. But no doubt that uh, although we have a massive computation, and these are not artificial neuron, they are real neuron, right? And how many of them are we are having? Somehow 100 billion, and near about 1 trillion interconnections are there. So with such a massive computation network, even with that, 9 months we take to learn a language. So being inspired from here, of course, deep neural networks were generated, although in from the way human compute is not digital, of course. Of course, the computation paradigms are different, but we are trying to actually um, mm, we are trying to get um, um, our understanding by studying human way of learning the language. So it was thought that okay, can we develop with such a massive computation power? Can you develop a deep neural network which can uh, learn and translate language? Okay, language translation is another area, toughest area, of course. You'll have to learn, for example, I would like to learn, translate from English to Bengali or English to Hindi. So I need to know the two languages. And then the way how we actually translate is not word for word translation. So there is kind of attention which we pay. For example, I am flying a kite. Okay, in Bengali, আমি ঘুড়ি ওড়াচ্ছি. So uh, the keyword here is flying kite. Mm. So those are called attention. In this sequence of words, some words needed to be figured out and um, given attention so that um, the understanding and the synthesis of another language could be very effective. So ChatGPT, actually the generative pre-trained transformer is actually transformer is that architecture, transformers architecture, which actually is responsible for mm, making a huge neural network to learn a language, and eventually it could even translate. This is exactly what I'm trying to tell you, that transformer model works on mathematical techniques known as attention or self-attention. Okay, and it is a neural network that learns context by evaluating these three metrics. So there is nothing philosophical. Okay, attention can be actually quantified by evaluating these three matrices, and words can be given attention score, and based on that, um, so you can understand through training a language, and once you understand languages, you can translate one to another form. Okay, say here he is flying a big purple kite, but if you try to just translate in Bengali, so he ও একটা বড় purple কালারের ঘুড়ি ওড়াচ্ছে. So you see, he is flying a kite is the main attention should be drawn here, and then big purple. So this is called strong attention. He is flying a kite. And this big kite, purple kite, they are not so strong, or they are actually weak attention. But all about creating attention. So if I can calculate each word's attention using some model, the attention model, then the higher the score is of a word, so those are having strong attention. So like flying kite. So this is actually very elaborately, you can just very beautiful seminal paper was written by Asis and his group, and is given in my reference. So all my students, before um, before talking about ChatGPT, I suggest that you should uh, go through this paper, and those who are interested to learn transformer model by actually doing it, they must refer with code 4, reference 4, and others this 1 2 reference, and then you will be knowing what I am talking about. Okay, so this originally was developed by Assis Vaswani in 2000 and his group, of course. Although attention was not new, but the way they proposed attention to be introduced within encoder and decoder model. So what are encoder and decoder? Let us try to just understand. And these are the pictures you will get in the reference which I have talked. Okay. So say there are two languages. This may be English and this may be Bengali. And then you have inputs. So you have to have training data, right? And so input has to be embedded. There are positional encoding. There are multi-head attention. This is what I was trying to tell. Okay. And then, of course, feed forward network and add a norm, add a norm. So these are to stack. Okay, the language model is created, say for training for English, and simultaneously corresponding to that English, say Bengali or some Hindi language, the language will also have masked multi-headed attention, and there will be many such layers. Okay, detail in the can be obtained in the paper. So when really they are big. And how big? You see, this is before Chat GPT, GPT-1, it came in 2018, June 11. It contained 150 million parameters. Okay. And then GPT-2, 1.5 billion parameter, and it was launched in February 14, 2019. It's 10 times bigger than this. So that means stack of multi-headed attention, then feed forward network, and then so these stacks are increasing. And then GPT-3, 175 billion parameters, trained on 570 gigabytes of text. You can say massive. Yeah. So it is almost 100 times bigger. It was launched on June 11, 2020. And with this, we are having a lot of expectation, and we are expecting that GPT-4 will come. Uh, last year, actually, all of us were expecting that it will come, but instead, at the end of the year, in November 30th, ChatGPT came, which is a much slimmer model having 1.5 billion trainable parameters. And it was promised that the GPT-4 will also come in 2023, which may have some 100 trillion parameters. So, with this massive computation power which we have, we can now have data, lots of data about language, and really it is now possible to have a massive network which will really understand language and can be able to seamlessly translate language from one to another. So, and that will change the very face of the artificial intelligence. Why? Because you see, the again analogy I'm giving, if you see a child first learn a language, and once she is learning a language, now she can pick up, she can be a lawyer, she can be an artist, she can be a doctor, engineer. So everything else can be taught. So language is very important. That's why we should know about this. And this, you see, this is ChatGPT also is a language model. But once you are training a massive network, and when we are talking about such a gigantic parameter, 175 billion, 100 trillion, that means you have huge stack of this modular architecture which has been shown here. And merely those architectures are not autoregressive in nature anymore. Those can be considered as a algorithmic machine. And with those machines, you can actually crank out many logical um, logical entities which may not be a language. Okay, ChatGPT is actually trying to do that. Okay, so once the parameter is trained, as long as your domain specific problem, the data which you have in your domain, if those data follow the similar kind of statistical distribution with which this gigantic neural network has been trained, then they can give you logical output. And that's how people are trying to use ChatGPT for various purposes, for writing code for you. And you see that is the thing which ChatGPT can do. Okay, writing and debugging codes for you. Can you imagine that in future the writing codes will be much more easier? It can copywriting, that is writing some essays, a blog post, opinion pieces, all kind of things it can actually do for you. Then it can create a website, newsletter, etc., etc. Then it can write resumes even and cover letters, you see, and it can do text summarization. It can even write some jokes, songs, and poems. So what not? So those are the capabilities ChatGPT has. Okay. Of course, ChatGPT has some limitations as well. Okay. Sometimes it writes feasible but incorrect or some nonsensical answer, especially when you are using ChatGPT for extracting some facts. For example, after making an account in December, I asked in the prompt. So there is a prompt, a space where you can ask any question. So I asked about write an essay about processes in the IIIT Allahabad, and momentarily it start writing. And many of the writings were correct, and many of the writings were wrong. So this kind of nonsensical answers it can give sometimes, incorrect answer also. But if you ask some question about how to how do you think about reinforcement learning, going to change the robotics domain, okay, learning domain, then in those areas, it gives logical answers. Okay. So ChatGPT also is sensitive to prompting, to input phrasing. That's why it's very important that to get your result in a particular domain, say I am asking to ask ChatGPT that, okay, I want um, to solve the grasping problem intelligently, how robot can grasp an object. Can you tell us what are the ways? And it will tell you what is going on and what are the ways with latest referencing. Okay, so these are the great things. So I suggest all of you should have an account by that time, at least all the technologists, and for research, we use it for research and development purpose. So we have a we signed a form where we told explicitly, and now although GPT, the language models were developed by OpenAI, which is a consortium of many um companies, and then it's a company actually, and it was supposed to be making everything open. GPT-2 is open source, but GPT-3 is not. So a few days back, Elon Musk tweeted that now OpenAI was name was given so that it will be a non-profit organization, this, that, but nowadays it is um, no more non-profit organizations. And very interestingly, the company which all my students know is famous for his non-innovativeness, and they were I'm talking about Microsoft. We use their Word, MS Office, but how many of us use their search engine called Bing? Surprisingly, they are able to now catch very quickly the ChatGPT, and they are using their um, this on top of the search engine. They are using this query tool, and on the other hand, Google Brain, where in 2017 the first transformer model were developed, they kept somehow very silent over the years about developing massive language model the way now people are trying to do. Reason may be many, of course, that inaccuracies and all may landed those big companies into trouble. I do not know, but all the language models were not coming up. People were expecting, and now, of course, surely with ChatGPT, they have given recently some $300 million to an startup, Anthropic um, um, company. Okay, they are funded by Google. Actually, the company was actually created by some of the former OpenAI researchers. Anyway, they are so now all the big players are now trying to take the advantage of uh, maximum possible way what ChatGPT is providing. Okay. Um, Recently, this ChatGPT has provided lots of APIs, and through APIs, although it is not open source, as I told you, through APIs you can create a lot of output. You know, recent paper. This is a good paper. You can just see Meta AI and EPF researchers introduce tool format, a language model that learns in a self-supervised way how to use different tools such as search engine via simple API calls. So the paper is amazing. I just read, and here you will now know the way the research is going on in future. So you will be calling lots of APIs. You will need to create a model which automatically can call it relevant APIs and give answer to your queries. So um, I think in future, uh, prompt engineers post will be admirable. So you can, so because you have already a smart infrastructure like ChatGPT. Now, earlier, you see, if you wanted to develop some software intelligent product, what you would do, first of all, one should try to develop um, a design, architecture, and then hire programmers who will understand the implementation of the architecture. So this entire process could be much more simplified through simple prompting. Okay, because you have the complicated, smart agent like ChatGPT. There you can fire your prompt and extract output. And then you can write much more simpler codes, and you know whether the outputs are acceptable or not. And then simpler codes can be written to automate using those outputs. So this, in a simplified term, I wanted to tell you, it may not be that simple, but this will be the train in future, we believe, because because ChatGPT has given you that opportunity. So now startup in India, those who do not have funding or even but have wonderful ideas, so you can make an account with ChatGPT, and maybe with some few money you can just have an access to the APIs, and uh, through prompting you can generate outputs, and with those outputs now you can design your own product. Okay, so what we can see in near future, I believe that lots of such high quality AI product will be developed. Now the issue is whether our big brothers, like those who have muscle power, I mean, uh, the companies, big companies, trillion-dollar companies like Microsoft, Google, Apple, whether they are um, mm, um, trying to take advantage of ChatGPT, and using that, they are going to develop product and they will drive innovation, or in a massive democratic way, all people, those who have ideas, wonderful ideas, they can form companies. So many more such startup companies can use also ChatGPT to crank out products. So recipes are all there in the market. So whoever can make a better curry, cook well, the world will be theirs, I believe. So let us see. And also in this paradigm, you see the programmer's role are going to change definitely, because as I told, that it is now um, a algorithmic machine. It is not doing some regression or some autoregressive way. It is cranking out some result. So it is already an algorithmic machine, and how beautifully you can excite an algorithm to generate the output will be the challenges of the programmers. Means rather mm, uh, prompt writer, uh, logical prompt writers, a job would be there also, and how beautifully writing prompt this smart agent ChatGPT, uh, how beautifully you can exploit that and create your own output, and then write simple program to develop product could be uh, the need of the hour in future. So these are some of the references I was talking about. One should mm, read this seminal paper. Okay, attention is all you need. Huh? You have heard this name in this area, whoever is working. If not, then just download this paper and um, read this paper, and also implement. Okay, you can read also this blog, that how word, as I was telling, attention has to be quantified, right? So sentence is a sequence of words, and each word uh, should have a attention number, and how that can be actually quantized. The basics can be obtained from this Stanford lecture. Okay, so you can also see. And then the ultimate guide to transform deep neural network. This also blog you can read, and this is what you can learn by doing, by implementing task format model. So all my students must have this assignments, read this paper, implement this concept, and in the process, learn more using this. Also, together with this, as I told you, that how a language model can learn in a self-supervised way. This is very recent paper in February, uh, 9th February, it was in the archive of this year. So today is 10 days back, merely 10 days back, this paper came, and you can just read very easy to read paper. And this is the direction where uh, research and developer are going, and everybody is trying to actually take advantage of uh, whatever ChatGPT has given. And as a technologist, I also think, and I used to think, that ChatGPT has given a enormous opportunity, and we must utilize it properly in our problem domain. Every problem domain, if you have problem, some solution ChatGPT can give. Okay, so that's the take home today. So we should open an account. We should learn more about ChatGPT. We should learn more about the background of the ChatGPT, and let us try to take part in the future innovation. So I think uh, this technologists sometimes say, okay, this is what going to change the face of the art. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, for example, this technology really it happened, right? So when people were investigating how many more buttons would be given in a Nokia phone or BlackBerry phone, then gentleman Steve Jobs came and told that my phone will have no um, buttons at all. That was a disruptive thinking. ChatGPT also is a disruptive thinking in the sense that it is a smart agent capable of doing complicated things which otherwise you will have to do, hiring a lot of people, hiring a lot of resources, and then getting some result. So that result getting processed may be simplified, okay, using ChatGPT. So with this, thank you very much for your attention. Have a nice day. Bye bye.